Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alyson Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. At least 20 people were killed and over 400 injured in cities across Lebanon in a new series of explosions aimed at Hezbollah, this time not targeting pages, but walkie-talkies instead. Germany announces $445 million in extra military aid for Ukraine to fulfill its support commitments, despite a row over budgetary constraints. Over 100 Republican former national security and foreign policy officials endorsed Kamala Harris for president in a joint letter calling Trump unfit to serve. China urges the United States to withdraw the mid-range missile system deployed in the Philippines as soon as possible, amid rising tension in the region. And Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida demands an explanation from Beijing over the fatal stabbing of a 10-year-old Japanese boy in China's Shenzhen. Hello and welcome. Let's take a look at our top story. Africa, a continent with some of the fastest growing economies, is gradually turning to nuclear power to meet its energy needs. In the latest, East Africa's Rwanda is also eyeing to embrace the clear energy source, and it is partnering with Russia to meet its goals. Russia's state nuclear energy agency, Rosatom, is planning to send a delegation to Rwanda. The agenda will be to discuss the building of a nuclear science center and a small nuclear power plant in Rwanda. The two countries will aim to strengthen bilateral cooperation through a potential nuclear deal. The two countries had agreed to cooperate in peaceful nuclear energy use back in 2018. The agreement was to aid Rwanda in developing its nuclear infrastructure and use nuclear energy across several sectors. But Rwanda is not the only African nation working to utilize nuclear energy. Over the past year, a number of African countries have announced such plans. This push is driven by several factors, including their industrialization ambitions, lack of fuel, power shortages, and international commitments to climate change mitigation. Nuclear energy is the way forward for most African countries, as it offers reliable baseload power without any carbon emissions. The African nuclear market is poised for significant growth in the coming years, and one nation that is aggressively tapping into this opportunity is Russia. Russia holds a huge expertise in this area. Its state firm, Rosatom, is one of the primary exporters of nuclear fuel, uranium enrichment services, as well as funding for the construction of new nuclear facilities. Nearly 1 in 5 nuclear power plants on the planet is either in Russia or is Russian-built. Now, the firm has business activities in over 60 countries across the globe. So as more and more African nations look to adopt the clean energy source, Russia is rapidly pushing into this market for both economic and political reasons. It is also crucial for Russia, amidst its war with Ukraine, to explore more alliances and trade partners. So from east to west and north to south, Russia has been expanding its nuclear footprint across Africa. Russia has nuclear energy-related agreements with several African nations, including the Republic of Congo, Guinea, Algeria, Burkina Faso, Mali, Zimbabwe, Burundi, Kenya, Uganda, Ethiopia, Egypt, Nigeria, and Tanzania. Currently, Africa has only one operational nuclear plant in South Africa. A second is being built by Russia in Egypt, which is one of the biggest nuclear construction projects in the world. So Russia has been able to leverage its nuclear expertise in Africa. How will it benefit the African nations? And what political impact will Russia's nuclear expansion in the continent have? Now, for more on this, we have with us Ishmael Buchanan, senior lecturer at the University of Rwanda and a current postdoctoral research fellow at the UN Geneva. He joins us live from Geneva, Switzerland. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's jump right in. What are the primary motivations behind Russia's interest in establishing a nuclear plant in Rwanda?
And I believe the primary motivation behind all this, we put in support of Rwanda and Russia. If you look at the binding agreement between the government of Rwanda, that was in 2019, in Russia. It depends on what we call bilateral agreement between both countries, or even included in Europe, just signed with the some countries, specifically with the African countries like Rwanda, on the use of energy. I think that on bilateral cooperation in Rwanda. So I think there is no that both to continuing their relationship to domain of say of also
right. Ishmael, thank you very much for being with us. We are having some technical difficulties there. We will try to reconnect, but thank you for joining us on Firstpost Africa. And now moving to Sudan. Sudan's warring parties, which are locked in a 17-month-long civil war, have said that they are open to re-engage in talks. This comes a day after US President Joe Biden made a rare statement on Sudan, expressing concerns over the conflict. Responding to Biden's statement, Sudan Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan said that the government remains open to working with global partners to resolve the conflict peacefully. He said the army-backed government is fully committed to ending the suffering of citizens. Following suit, the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF leader, Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, made similar remarks. He reaffirmed his commitment to ceasefire negotiations. However, the leaders also pointed at each other for failure to bring an end to the conflict. They have also not outlined the steps toward reaching a peaceful solution. Sudan's army chief has urged the international community to hold accountable states supporting the RSF, which has captured significant areas of the country. The RSF leader, on the other hand, called out army's utter disregard for human life, as they earlier refused to participate in the peace talks. Now, these responses came a day after Joe Biden made his first public statement on the war in Sudan. He called for Sudan's warring parties to re-engage in peace talks and to facilitate humanitarian access. He declared that members of both the army and the RSF have committed war crimes, but members of the RSF have further committed crimes against humanity and ethnic cleansing. Biden, whose term will end in January, has pushed for higher stakes diplomacy on the Sudan conflict, in recent months. US-led Sudan peace talks in Geneva last month, along with other mediators. Now, the talks did not achieve a ceasefire as the army refused to participate, citing disappointment with the format. The civil war between Sudan's army and the paramilitary RSF erupted in April last year. The war killed tens of thousands of people, with some estimates as high as 150,000, according to US envoy Tom Perillo. It has also created the world's largest displacement crisis, with several civilians left without access to food, water, and other essentials. From Sudan, we move to Uganda now. Earlier this week, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni marked his 80th birthday. The milestone event was marked with prayers and celebrations on his nearly 40 years of rule. On his birthday, the now octogenarian president promised free education in all government primary and secondary schools. While celebrations continued across Uganda, the parliament in the capital Kampala witnessed a heated debate over the country's future leadership. At the center of this debate was President Museveni's age. Some lawmakers expressed concerns over his age and fitness to lead. Opposition MP Ibrahim Semuju called for the president to undergo regular mental and physical tests to ensure that he remains fit to lead the country. He said the president keeps making erratic decisions. Now, the lawmaker also pointed to international precedents, particularly the United States. He said there was a need for Uganda to emulate the Democratic Party in the US, which asked President Biden to not contest the 2024 election on account of old age.
To be a president, the Constitution says you must be mentally and physically fit. In America, the President Joe Biden was actually asked not to participate in elections on account of his age, 79. When you have an 80-year-old president who keeps making erratic decisions, Mr. Speaker, I want to implore this parliament that we subject our president to, now that he's 80, to periodical mental and physical test, because that's a requirement of the Constitution. You can see her. But the Constitution says so, because the makers of this Constitution had actually put an article that at 75 you can't be a president. I was not in the CA. And the president himself, you know, before he came here, I was a journalist. When we interviewed him, he said at 75 you are tired. Someone who doesn't even remember that there is no governor for the central bank. We need, and I'm just doing this in good faith, even for his health.
The proposal ignited a fierce debate in Parliament. The ruling NRM Vice President and Ugandan Minister Chris Baryomunsi defended the president, saying that he may have chronologically aged, but he is biologically young. Another MP, John Baptist Loki, stood up to the defense of the President Museveni. He said the president had not shown any signs of failing his duties, so his capability should not be doubted. He called the proposal an unnecessary attack on the elderly.
From a medical standpoint, we have two types of aging. There is what we call chronological aging, which is a measure of a number of years, and what we call physiological aging, whereby you have seen people who are 60, but they are finished. So they are chronologically young, but biologically aged. And I want to speak as a medical professional that President Yoweri Museveni may have chronologically clocked 80 years, but he is biologically young. And yes, and the spirit and letter of the Constitution is that it is the voters, if he presents himself or any other aged person, it is up to the voters to assess whether you are energetic to lead them or not.
He is trying to insinuate that an elderly person at 80 years cannot steer this country, cannot reason. Now, Right Honorable Speaker, if America is saying people at 80 should be subjected to other medical tests, but our president has not shown any sign of failing. He has not shown any sign of failing to discharge his duties. So, is Honorable Semuju in order to insinuate that our president, who is experienced to lead this country, is he in order to insinuate that our president cannot lead this country? Thank you.
The Deputy Press Secretary to the President, Farouk Gurunda, has now challenged the opposition MP, Ibrahim Semuju, to a fitness challenge with President Museveni. The government says the opposition is using Museveni's age for political propaganda after they failed to prevent the lifting of the age limit from the Constitution. In 2017, after debates and brawls inside the parliament, Uganda amended its constitution to lift an age limit of 75 years for those vying for presidency. Long-standing President Yoweri Museveni was 73 years old then. He has been in power since 1986 and democratically elected president as 1996. In 2005, a previous two-term limit was also scrapped to allow Museveni to stand for a third term. Opposition MP Ibrahim Semuju also drew comparisons to Zimbabwe, where when former President Robert Mugabe started aging, his wife began to exert significant influence over national decisions. He also raised concerns over the growing power of Ugandan President Museveni's son, who was promoted to become the country's army chief. The Ugandan opposition said that these were signs of an emerging dynastic succession. The debate over President Yoweri Museveni's age is part of a larger concern over the need for a transition of power in Uganda. Though the Museveni government shows no signs of giving up power, some lawmakers and citizens feel that his time in office may be nearing an end. And finally, to our special segment, Resurgent to Africa. Amid the coups and the crises, there are many positive stories from Africa that often get overlooked, but not on this show. In Zimbabwe, farmers are fighting to expand their blueberry farm amid the rising global demand. Despite a favorable climate and increase in production, these farmers face major financial hurdles, with banks reluctant to lend due to uncertain land policies. Our next report brings you more on the dedication of these Zimbabwean farmers who aim to become a major player in the blueberry market.
In the heart of Zimbabwe, a quiet revolution is unfolding on the rich soils of Talana Farm, 100 kilometers west of Harare. And at the helm of this transformation is a determined farmer, Willard Zireva, who, against all odds, is striving to make Zimbabwe a global hub for blueberries. His story begins in the 1990s when Zireva bought his farm freehold, long before the land seizures shook Zimbabwe's agricultural sector. So, while others faced uncertain futures, Zireva had a vision. He saw the potential in the fertile land, the perfect climate, and the growing global demand for a superfood, blueberries. But like many dreams, his came with challenges that seemed insurmountable. To plant his first crop, Zireva had no external support and relied entirely on his savings. And even though Zimbabwe's blueberry production had doubled in recent years, the barriers to finance were unyielding, especially for black farmers like Zireva. Nevertheless, Zireva pushed forward, planting 12 hectares of blueberries. Each hectare came at a staggering cost, at least $100,000. Though the expenses piled up, Zireva's resolve remained unwavering.
If funding is available, it is a massive growth opportunity.
And he was right. His farm, small by global standards, had the potential to export much more to global markets. But the demand far outweighed the supply, which was marred by financial constraints.
We export to the UK. We have an export going to Germany for the first time next week. The bulk of our crop actually goes to Asia. And when I say Asia, I should be saying Far East. It goes to Malaysia, Indonesia, Hong Kong, Cambodia. Those are the main markets at the moment.
But the journey is not Zireva's alone. Zimbabwe's blueberry sector has been growing, driven by a favorable climate and a surge in global demand. The country's horticultural exports exceed $100 million annually, with blueberries playing a key role. However, the lack of long-term finance has been a constant roadblock, leaving many farmers unable to expand or meet growing market demands.
We are hoping that we can get funding next year to put in 8 hectares so that we go to 20. If we get more funding, because we are talking to various possibilities, we get more funding, we want to double the area, so to go to 24 hectares.
The future of Zimbabwe's blueberry industry is bright, but it needs support. Farmers like Zireva dream of a day when concessional funding will allow them to transform their farms and push Zimbabwe's agricultural sector to new heights. His story is one of resilience, a testament to the power of belief in the face of adversity. With every harvest, Zireva is not just growing blueberries, he's nurturing hope. And so, with faith, grit and an unwavering commitment to the land, Willard Zireva continues to chase his dream, one blueberry at a time.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching and goodbye. Hello and welcome to